October 12th. Police are called to a $3 million estate for a reported home invasion. Two wealthy daughters of the deceased owner claim a crazed burglar broke in, and they were forced to shoot. But the woman bleeding on the marble floor isn't a burglar. Her name is Elena Vasquez. She's 51 years old. She has a daughter in college, a cat named Biscuit, and a drawer full of thank you cards from families she's helped over the years. For the last 4 years, while these daughters never once visited, Elena bathed their dying father, cooked his meals, managed his medications, and held his hand through the worst nights. 3 days ago, the father's will was read in a lawyer's conference room. Because of Elena's unmatched kindness, he left his entire $3 million estate to her. His biological daughters received absolutely nothing. They thought they committed the perfect murder. They staged the scene, they rehearsed the tears, they had an answer for everything. But in exactly 3 minutes, a fatal mistake caught on an officer's body cam is going to unravel their entire web of lives and send them both to prison for the rest of their lives. The Sterling estate sits at the end of a private cul-de-sac in one of the wealthiest zip codes in the county. Brick columns at the gate, a circular driveway lined with hedges, the kind of house where the neighbors mind their business and security cameras are pointed inward, not out. When officers first arrive at 9:47 p.m., they are met with chaos. Sisters Chloe and Madison Sterling are standing in the foyer, both visibly shaking. Chloe, the older one, at 38, has mascara streaked down her face. Madison, 34, is clutching a handgun that's already been placed in an evidence bag by the time the second unit arrives. They tell responding officers the same story, almost word for word. They came to the house tonight to begin sorting through their late father's belongings, a grief errand, a practical task during a difficult time. They say they had only been inside for maybe 20 minutes when the front door was suddenly kicked open. A woman charged at them in the dark. Madison says she was terrified. She says she thought it was a home invasion. She fired her licensed .38 in self-defense. One shot sent her mass. The 911 call came in at 9:31 p.m. The caller, Madison, sounds frantic. She's crying, breathing hard, stumbling over her words. She says, "I didn't mean to. I didn't know. She just came at us." The dispatcher stays on the line. Madison keeps repeating it. On the surface, this looks like an open and shut case of a tragic break-in gone wrong. A grieving family, a dark house, a stranger forcing entry. It is textbook self-defense. Almost. Until the lead detective, Sergeant Ray Holloway, kneels down next to the victim lying on the foyer floor. She's wearing light blue medical scrubs. Her ID badge is still clipped to her chest pocket. Her pockets are empty. No weapon, no crowbar, no stolen items, no bag, nothing that would indicate she broke into anything. Holloway turns the badge over and reads the name. Then he stands up slowly and looks around the room.
He knows this woman, not personally, but by reputation. Elena Vasquez had been a fixture in this neighborhood for 4 years. The kind of caregiver people remember because she went further than anyone expected. Holloway had heard her name at a community event 2 years earlier, when the Sterling family's longtime housekeeper told anyone who would listen that Elena was the only reason Mr. Sterling hadn't died alone and miserable in a hospital. Holloway doesn't say anything yet. He tells the officers to separate the sisters and get their official statements. Standard procedure. Routine. But it is the exact moment the sisters' bulletproof plan begins to crack straight down the middle. On the east side of the foyer, Officer Miller takes Chloe into the formal sitting room, body cam rolling. Miller is calm, patient. He tells Chloe he just needs to understand exactly what happened so they can get the paperwork right. He asks her to walk him through the break-in from the beginning. Chloe wipes her eyes, takes a breath. She says they were in the upstairs hallway going through closets when they heard a crash. She says the woman shattered the back patio glass door, the one that opens from the kitchen onto the garden, and came running through toward the front of the house. She says it happened so fast. She says Madison had no choice. She sells it well. Her voice breaks at the right moments. She touches her collarbone like she's still in shock. Simultaneously, out in the driveway, Officer Davis is with Madison. Different story, different officer, 50 feet away. Davis asks Madison to describe how Elena got inside. Madison says she kicked the front door wide open. She says she saw her silhouette in the doorway. She says she was backlit by the streetlight from the cul-de-sac and she came straight at them. The officers finish their statements and regroup with Sergeant Holloway near the front entrance. They compare notes. 30 seconds later, every face in that entryway goes still. The back patio glass is not broken. There is no shattered door, no broken glass on the kitchen floor, no mud tracked in from the garden. The patio door is not only intact, it is locked from the inside with a secondary bolt that has not been touched. And the front door, the door Madison says Elena kicked in, has no damage whatsoever. No scuff marks on the frame, no splintered wood. The strike plate is clean. And it was found unlocked when first responders arrived. Not forced, not kicked, unlocked. Holloway looks at the door, then at his officers. He says it quietly, almost to himself. This wasn't a home invasion. This was an execution.
The sisters are transported to the precinct, not as victims, not as witnesses, as suspects. The shift in posture happens immediately. Madison stops crying the moment she sits down in interrogation room B. Chloe starts asking about attorneys within the first 2 minutes of sitting in room A. Both of them are smart enough to know something shifted. Neither of them knows yet exactly how badly. What they don't know is that Sergeant Holloway had already made a call before the cars left the Sterling Estate driveway. He reached out to the county's estate attorney on record for the Sterling Estate, a man named Gerald Forsyth, who confirmed 2 things within the hour. One, that Elena Vasquez had been named the sole beneficiary of the entire Sterling Estate, valued at just under $3 million. 2, that both Chloe and Madison Sterling had been in his office 3 days ago when that will was read, and that neither of them had taken the news quietly. Gerald Forsyth's word for it was volatile. Armed with that, detectives go to work. In interrogation room A, Detective Sims sits across from Chloe and lays the inconsistencies out one by one. The broken glass that isn't broken, the kicked door with no damage, the conflicting entry points in her and her sister's statements. He watches Chloe's jaw tighten as each point lands. Then he slides a printed document across the table. Elena's phone records pulled within the first 2 hours of the investigation. There is no missed call to 911 from Elena's phone that night, no frantic texts, nothing suggesting she stumbled onto a dangerous situation. What the records show is a text message received on Elena's phone at 7:18 p.m., 2 hours before the shooting. The text came from Madison's number. It reads, "Hey Elena, so sorry to bother you. There's a final check here for you from Dad's account. If you want to come by tonight and pick it up, the front door will be unlocked." Elena had texted back, "Of course, thank you. I'll be there around 9:30. Chloe stares at the paper. The grieving daughter act doesn't collapse all at once. It crumbles in slow motion. You can watch it happen in the body cam footage that was running the entire time inside the interrogation room. The slight parting of the lips, the eyes going flat, the hands going very still on the table. And then, because the money was never worth sharing, not even between sisters, Chloe makes her move.
She tells Detective Sims it was all Madison's idea. She says Madison found out about the will first. She says Madison was the one who pulled the trigger. She says Madison sent the text luring Elena to the house. She says she never wanted any part of it, and she only went along because she was scared of what Madison would do to her if she didn't. She says all of this in one breath, no hesitation. 4 years of sisterhood dissolved in under 2 minutes for $3 million she is never going to see. In Interrogation Room B, Madison has held her composure for nearly 40 minutes. She is still running the script, still grieving, still traumatized, still a frightened woman who fired in self-defense. She is actually quite good at it. Right up until Detective Holloway sets a small recorder on the table and presses play. What comes out of that recorder is her sister's voice. Calm, clear, specific. Chloe laying out every detail of the plan, right down to whose idea it was and who pulled the trigger. Madison's composure lasts approximately 8 seconds after the audio ends. Here's what the investigation ultimately revealed. When Howard Sterling died after a long illness, his daughters flew in for the funeral, said the right things, shook the right hands, and then waited. They assumed the math was simple. Father dies, estate goes to family. Each daughter walks away with roughly $1.5 million. Done. What they got instead was Gerald Forsythe reading a will that Howard Sterling had quietly updated 14 months before his death. Howard had watched his daughters visit exactly twice in his final 4 years. Both times they spent more time asking questions about the house's valuation than sitting with him. Meanwhile, Elena showed up 5 days a week. She learned which foods he could still eat when his appetite went. She fixed the TV remote every time he accidentally changed the settings. She sat with him through the bad nights when the pain medication wasn't enough. He told Forsythe he wanted her taken care of. The daughters left that conference room furious and humiliated. They hired their own attorney, looking for any angle to contest the will. That attorney, whose name has not been made public, told them that contesting would be nearly impossible given the specificity of Howard's instructions and the documentation around Elena's role. But he also mentioned, during what was apparently a longer conversation than it should have been, that if Elena died before the estate cleared probate, the assets would likely revert to the biological next of kin under intestate succession rules. The estate was not yet legally in Elena's possession. It was in process. They did not act that same day. They waited 3 days, long enough to seem like they were grieving. Then they executed the plan. The lure text from Madison's phone, the unlocked front door, the dark foyer, the single shot, the staged hysteria, the 911 call with the crying that didn't quite hit right when audio analysts reviewed it later. The two separate stories that contradicted each other on the single most important detail, where and how the victim entered the house. That contradiction, caught on 2 separate body cams running simultaneously, was the thread that pulled the entire thing apart. Chloe Sterling was charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. She cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for a plea. She is currently serving 25 years to life. Madison Sterling went to trial and was convicted on all counts. She is serving life without the possibility of parole. Their attorney, the one who mentioned the probate loophole, is currently the subject of a separate bar investigation. Howard Sterling's estate, after a lengthy legal process given that the named beneficiary had been murdered, was ultimately distributed according to the terms of his will as closely as legally possible. The bulk of the estate was donated to a non-profit that provides hospice training and financial support to home health aides, workers who do the job Elena did, in the hours nobody sees, for families who don't always say thank you. Elena Vasquez's daughter received a portion of the estate directly. Her name has not been released. There is a moment in the body cam footage from that night that doesn't make it into most retellings of this case. It happens right after Sergeant Holloway realizes what he's looking at, right after he sees the unmarked front door and the unbroken patio glass and understands that nothing about the sisters' story is true. He walks back to where Elena is lying on the floor. He crouches down beside her. He doesn't say anything. He just stays there for a moment before the paramedics move in. He later told investigators he recognized her ID badge from the Neighborhood Watch newsletter. The community coordinator had put her picture in there the previous year, a small feature, Caregiver of the Month. It said she had been with Howard Sterling for 4 years and that the family was grateful. Holloway said he remembered thinking the family wasn't grateful at all. Elena did everything right. She showed up. She stayed. She gave a dying man his dignity in his final years when the people who were supposed to do that had already written him off as a transaction. She paid the ultimate price for it. But the body cams were rolling. The text was on the phone. And greed, when it sits in a room with a way out, will always take it, even if that means burning down everything else. The sisters never saw a single dollar. They never will.